Live from State Street, it's the Free People Show, episode 22.
The Free People Show is a show about the practice and politics of being free. Free from government, free from coercion, and free to be yourself. Host Phil Anderson is a libertarian, a Christian, and was the kind of kid who, according to his grandmother, just wouldn't shut up. Phil and his co-hosts will talk politics, but also life in general, challenging you, entertaining you, persistently rapping on the back door of orthodox two-party politics, sparing nobody and taking no prisoners, maybe even making you laugh. Tweet us at @FreePeopleShow with questions and suggestions, or comment on Facebook during or after the show. For information about being a guest, hosting a live broadcast, or sponsoring the show, email info@freepeopleshow.com. Thanks for listening. Now, here's your host, Phil Anderson.
Good evening and welcome to the Free People Show, episode 22, coming live to you from our new digs at 122 State Street. Thanks everyone for watching at freepeopleshow.com, as well as on our host platform Spreaker and on Facebook. Wave everyone. Lots of fans on Facebook. My special thanks tonight to co-hosts Patrick Baird and Miles Christian. You'll see Miles in a few minutes. Patrick's already sitting down in a chair. Engineer Samuel Anderson, business agent Ron DePau, who's also here tonight, despite the fact that he's got a 3.5-week-old baby at home. Congrats to Ron. Show webmaster Dustin Dryfurst and show contributors Jeff Korch, Jay Ranshot, and John Migloch. You can find the Free People Show at freepeopleshow.com. I like to put a plug in for using our Amazon frame on our website, please. If you are using Amazon, go to freepeopleshow.com. Use our Amazon link to do your shopping. Doesn't cost you a cent, but it allows some revenue to come into this show out of Amazon's cut. You can also find us on Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, SoundCloud, Facebook, and Twitter. Patrick Baird, co-hosting first, is the treasurer of the Libertarian Party of Wisconsin, as well as he used to be the Web IT chair. He was the campaign manager for Anderson for U.S. Senate. He is the author and creator of the Libertarian Federalist, which you can find at libertarianfederalist.com and on Facebook. He is also the author of a series of spy novels called The Beatnik Spy, a true Renaissance man.
Yes, I am.
Yes, he is. And joining us tonight, a very special guest, Jessica Murphy.
Thank you for having me.
Former state chair of Young Americans for Liberty, current intern at the MacIver Institute, which is about a block and a half from here?
Yeah.
And who just published a paper that apparently ruffled the feathers of some folks in the University of Wisconsin system, and rightfully so, as we just talked about this last week on this very program. There's a ton of wasted taxpayer money, which of course is stolen in the first place from all of us, on programs and classes at the university that really just aren't worth holding in the first place, that are just, to pardon boiling it down to this phrase, more or less just mental, emotional masturbation, just ridiculous. And we pointed out a lot of that last week, but you're a perfect example of your paper of pointing out some things and the reaction that got, as we suspected it might, from some folks at the university. So why don't you tell us how that all rolled out, Jessica?
Yeah, for sure. So like you said, I'm an intern at the MacIver Institute, and one of my main research projects is to research the UW system, wasteful spending, anything regarding that. And I was given the task to find some wasteful courses. And I thought,
probably bet that wasn't too hard.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, this is going to be an easy little thing to do. And it was probably the most fun project I've ever done with MacIver, to be honest. But yeah, I started doing my research. We found dozens and dozens and dozens of courses through all 26 campuses that have strong, social justice warrior tendencies, or they, degrade capitalism. They just basically shouldn't be in the public system, right? And so we were going through those. I picked out the top 5, did some more background research on those, and obviously wrote the piece. I tried to keep it in the BuzzFeed style to engage a new audience. Ticked a few people off, I guess. But yeah, overall, had lots of mixed reviews on the piece itself. And then obviously a professor that was mentioned in one of the courses in the piece decided to share it to her comrades, as she said.
Her word, not yours.
Yeah, not
revealing.
My word.
Very revealing.
And there was a bunch of comments coming off of that, like 50 comments or whatever. And obviously, as a journalist or reporter, whatever you want to call my position, I'm I'm fine with taking criticism as long as it's constructive. That's fine. But what they resorted to was personal attacks, which I felt was incredibly inappropriate.
For example?
For example, I could punch her in the face by one of the professor's friends. She liked the comment and didn't say anything against it. So
just I could punch her in the face.
Yeah.
I think he says, I can punch her in the face for you. I think he was suggesting that if you want me to, I'll go track her down.
Okay, I'll cover you.
No, but I don't know. Yeah, I found the reaction absurd, and then obviously College Fix picked it up as well. I had an interview with them, and they kind of tried to help tell more of my side of the story about how, we're just trying to expose the bias that's happening in the system, and kind of just giving it more perspective.
Yeah, I think there's kind of two issues wrapped into one. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
There's the issue of bias, which is obviously a very important one. But that's the easiest one for people in the university system to react to. They start calling names. They say that you're the one with the political bias and not them, that sort of thing. But there's also the waste aspect of it. I mean, the classes that you mentioned and the ones that Patrick's mentioned, and I'd really enjoy seeing the whole list that you compiled if that's available. That would be an interesting post. Of all the things that people don't realize that their kids are being offered at the university, that they're taking classes in these various things, and that this is real taxpayer money that was harvested from people that earn it, to use to teach these things which are practically useless and probably a lot of them harmful to people's development into being not developing any necessarily political bias, moving forward, but just being reasonable citizens in society.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of it for people that don't have a political bias is just a tremendous waste. Like, what are these people doing? Why are we funding this? And I would guess, and I think from my perspective too, there could be some really idiotic libertarian class. I mean, this is like, there probably isn't. But
I didn't find it.
But theoretically, there could be
Good luck finding those at the UW system.
There could be. I mean, let's acknowledge, that there are probably maybe some different universities, private ones, probably not private ones because they are good stewards of their money, I'm sure, but other institutions that have, regardless of bias, things that are incredibly wasteful and stupid because there's a lack of supervision and this feeling that government money just comes from the government somewhere and that there's no connection to where it comes from and what the cost of that is.
Exactly. People also try making the argument that, these humanities professors don't get paid as much as the other programs like engineering professors or something.
There's a reason for that.
It's not true, though. One of the professors that was listed in the piece makes almost $170,000, and that's not including benefits.
Wow.
So socialist
And that's a tenure position, right?
Yes,
so they can't even be fired, really, unless they...
But even if that was true, I would imagine the reason that a lot of these humanities professors are not paid that well is because there's not a lot of companies lining up in the private sector to hire them away from the university. Whereas if you're an engineering professor or you're a scientist, I'm sure there are private companies out there that would love to have you on their payroll and would pay you very handsomely to have you on their payroll. I'm willing to bet the postmodern feminist English lit professors probably don't have a lot of private sector people lining up for their wisdom and insights into queer theory and how it affects modern feminism.
Well, and because there's not a market for that, there's probably a lack of private money coming into those programs, too. I mean, we see a lot of corporations giving money to have buildings built for engineering and science, chemistry, et cetera, but who's going to, maybe individuals would put money towards a humanities building or program or, scholarships or whatever, but, what company's going to want to fund these kind of classes?
It goes back to the conversation we had last week, where there's no tangible public good that results from all of this research that a lot of these academics do, versus the sciences and engineering, where there are tangible goods for society potentially in the research that they do.
And if you ask anybody who hires people nowadays, you could probably demonstrate tangible harm in the way that the students are taught.
And that's one of my points
to them and to the
that we made last week.
Right.
Is that it's not only wasteful, but it's also harmful. If they're actively trying to win students over to the idea that capitalism, as you pointed out, Jessica, capitalism is bad, capitalism is toxic, the white patriarchy runs everything, all of this stuff. Now, I'm all in favor of academic freedom, and if they want to have courses on a university that teach some of those things, I'm not necessarily opposed to it en masse, But once it becomes mandatory, which it is and is becoming, and you're a UW student, correct?
Yes.
So we've got the new diversity requirement and it is now going to be a requirement, correct? It was originally proposed as a suggested course, and I think now it's on its way to becoming a requirement.
I believe so, yeah.
Right. So, and I'll give you an example. This particular class you were talking about at UW Superior, I did a little extra research, and it is a required course. The course is called Teaching for Social Justice. It's a required course for any elementary school teacher candidate at that school of education in social studies. So if you want to be a social studies teacher graduating from UW Superior, you have to take this course.
Wait, if you have to be an elementary, you mean if you have to be an elementary school teacher?
An elementary school teacher in social studies.
Wow.
Now, here's a course description, which I think is illuminating. Students will investigate what it means to be a teacher who is concerned with social justice. Central concerns will include identifying and addressing inequalities of power within the classroom. Now,
inequalities of power
within an elementary school classroom. Now, there's such a thing because I got the crap beat out of me when I was in elementary school. So there was definitely an inequality of power going on there.
Did you deserve it though?
No, I didn't deserve it. I was a skinny kid with glasses. That was all that they needed to beat me up. So yes, that does exist, but I don't think it's the same inequalities of power that they're talking about here. Then additionally, making the classroom a liberating rather than an oppressive place. And here's my favorite part. The self-reflective classroom and how to respond to students' latent and manifest sexism, racism, classism, and homophobia. So, okay, there may be some overt racism that occurs in the classroom. A little kid gets mad and he uses the N-word with another kid. As a teacher, you should be trained on how to handle that situation. That's fine. But latent classism, sexism, racism, homophobia.
So there's some profiling going on there, right?
You're profiling 8-year-old kids and
they come into the classroom.
That is an example of your white privilege with the white cisgender patriarchy, and we're going to have to do something about that.
Like, what do you think they teach them about? Like, what do 8-year-olds do that merits that? Like,
well, they probably show up in like their I don't know, their dad's old T-shirt, their dad's old Megadeth T-shirt, right? You know, it's something like they got baloney instead of. Who knows? I mean, there's the teachers. It sounds like the teachers kind of left to making their own judgments, their own subjective judgments about which kids have latent what. And that's exactly the same thing as making assumptions about people's sexuality or anything. That's exactly the same thing. It's actually a huge power issue because right now, this is what they're supposedly trying to stamp out, individuals making judgments about each other and their sexuality, gender, culture, whatever. But in the process, they put that all in the hands of the teacher, who's then, when their kids walk in the room the first time in 3rd grade or 2nd grade or whatever, they're deciding right off the bat which kids have that latent homophobia, whatever it is.
Elementary school teachers have enormous power. As a parent of 2 children, I went to the student-teacher conferences, and I remember vividly, I think it was my son's 4th grade teacher, sitting us down at a parent-teacher conference saying, I think your son's in trouble. And this is 4th grade.
Wow.
She says, I've seen kids like him before, and they always head the same direction, criminality and drug addiction. And I'm like, he's in 4th grade. Wait a minute. Don't you think you're jumping to conclusions a little bit here? She was just a terrible teacher. But she had, for 1 year of my son's life, she had his future academic success in her hands.
So university professors have a ton of influence as well. Not in the same way, but a lot of times students, especially if they're studying, if the course is in their major or in something that they're really passionate about, they look up to university professors, and what they say about whatever is gold. And if they want to follow into a master's program or PhD program, not only are they going to follow along with what the professors say, what they teach, but they're going to want to impress them by following along.
You need the letters of recommendation.
Exactly, grading and letters and everything,
especially in education.
That's how you get sucked into that whole elitism of higher education, is by buying into it, by adopting a new understanding of how the world is based on a few people's influence. So we got about 1 minute till the break, so we're just going to wrap it up. We're going to talk to Jessica a little bit after the break as well. This is a fascinating conversation. Obviously, you've hit on a nerve with a lot of people at the university, so we're going to let you do more talking after our short break because Patrick and I like to talk. a lot.
Yes, we do.
And we're passionate about this. But we'll be back with the Free People Show at freepeopleshow.com, as well as on Facebook and all the other places that I listed, live from 122 State Street, back in 2 minutes.